Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be a long one. So pull up a chair, go and get a cup of tea or a little biscuit. I will wait. Yeah, no, I won't. We're going to use this stamp today. It is a Katie Sue design, and we're going to use, there's going to be a lot of colouring. A lot of colouring. Okay, so first we're going to start off with the skin. I usually tend to start with the skin. We're using E4, E11, EOO, and EOO. I sort of got this combination from Sandy Ornock, I think, and I really liked it. So we're going to do her arms and we're going to do her face and all the skin bits and pieces. So I've tried to speed this up a fair bit, but it's long, and you know why, because you've probably seen the card and the thumbnail, but there's a lot of colouring, but I'm really happy with how it all turned out. So we're working through all the skin and we're just sort of mapping out our highlights, our shadows, and then slowly filling in all the other bits and pieces. Now she's going to look pretty weird until, of course, we get the rest of it coloured in. But once you get everything else coloured in around her, she looks pretty cool. So I don't really know what I'm going to tell you in this thing because it's so long. There you go. So E39, 37, 35 and 33. And this is going to be for her hair. I'm starting out with, I'm not really mapping any of the like I usually do with the shadows with my lightest colour. I'm just going straight in. I'm just going with the motion of the hair. So you're going to have, the roots are going to be darker. And there's going to be highlights through the hair. So we're just going through each of the colours and just working in sections. So I've gone down the side. I have gone across her scalp a little bit. And we're just filling it in. And I'll go back through, and then once with I'll go back through and do add little shadows in, highlights, lowlights. That's what it is. Going back to my hairdressing days. I think it's called lowlights. I can't remember anymore. It's too long ago. But we're slowly working through this. So I've sped this up a fair bit to try and not have it quite so long. There's certain spots there that I have also cut it out, like with the background and everything else. You'll see me do most of the down the one side, and the last little bit you won't see me do it. I'll cut it all off. So we've got E31 now going through and just not blending it in, but blending all the colours in. So we still want a bit of the streakiness because it's hair. Hairs have, as I said, highlights and lowlights. They're not a matte colour. I'm going to work on the other side of her hair now. So there's not really much I can tell you with all this sort of thing at the moment, because it's a decent size image, and I got it quite a while ago, and there's lots of little bits and pieces of happy birthday in like a little cute banner with starfish, and the H and all the letters are all printed on there. There's an octopus, there's some other starfish, there's a couple of little shells. One has a sign with love, the other one has a little pearl, and I bought it quite a while ago, so I can't tell you whether it's going to be available or not, but it's more of the technique of colouring it and showing you how I've done that. And it is like I colour relatively quick, but as I said, there's a lot to colour in this image. And I haven't done very much of the background. My iPad just keeps waking up all the time with Siri. So this, I'm also going to use this die. Now I got this die on eBay and I don't really know who it is. I've tried to Google it and there's no one that seems to have, like, it's there but it's not labelled, so it's a little bit of a worry, but it's really cool and you'll see it, and we're going to also colour in some of that too. So there's our same sort of details, just all around the wrong way. Still around the wrong way, Nat. Doesn't matter. So the wood is still going to be the same colours as her hair, because it was a small sort of image that it wasn't really going to matter too much. And we're just using, again, adding some texture, adding the lines, but not blending it in properly, because we want that texture that has the wood, that wood has, sorry. And you see at the end, those letters that say "for you," I actually forgot to colour it in when I was colouring this image. So the photo at the end actually has it all coloured in. Because if you were anything like me, if someone misses something, you were like, don't forget the sign, don't forget the sign. But yeah, I forgot the sign. So when we get up to her body, or a tail, whatever you want to call it, we're going to use some sharp contrasts. So these are G29, G05, YG, that's a double O, because the ending is a bit focus, and YG03. And all our greens are going to be the same thing. Now some of this I'm going to get pretty close, and it's going to be hard to see, but it's a very fine image, like the starfish, the writing, some other bits and pieces. We're going to do some stippling, and when I get to those, it may be a little bit hard to see, but only because you're using the very tip of the texter, Copic. Seems wrong to call them a texter, but you know, I suppose that's what they are. Now what you're going to see is over on the side there, I've got a sheet right there. So because it's such a light colour and these can be so dark, I'm just cleaning off the tip of my Copic just to make sure it doesn't get contaminated. It will still have some staining, but it's fine. It's not going to cause you any great deal. I am going to go through later on and put a little bit of O in there for a little bit of texture, but you can't see it too much. And there's so much going on in this card that it doesn't matter. You don't need to fuss quite as much in some regards. You need to know when to fuss and when not to fuss. So her very tip of the tail, same sort of colours all over again. And we're just building up that colour and blending it in, and then I'll come back through. So I'll put the lightest down, I'll go to the darkest and then go through, and then I'll come back through, and depending on what's happening, I'll go back through and do the darkest all over again, down to the medium and to the lighter. And sometimes what I'll do is that I will leave where I want the white, the lightest colour, I will leave that. So I'll put some of it in, and so it still has a bit of a contrast and a bit of a highlight. And then once I've gone through a second time, that's when I fill it in properly. So we're just fiddling with the tail here. Now we're working with a pretty bright yellow, but you can sort of see, well, yellow-green I should say. But it just works, it just blends all in quite nicely. And the background that we're going to do is going to be very of a strong contrast as well, but it's over a bigger area. It won't stand out quite so much as this. And as I said, like some of these images, like around the ribbon, it's very, very thin. And the same here, we're just going to put that one colour straight through, we're just going to tap it down. Now I'm trying to figure out what colour to do. So these are our colours. So we've got YR4, YR2, 63 and 20. And I've already taken the libs off, so that's why they were so close to the screen. Oops. And so we're going to colour the string, the seahorse, the starfish, all in these same colours. And you're going to see that I'm going to, especially with the starfish, I think that you can't see too much of what's going on because it is really tiny little seahorse. And the string, and I won't go slow. Well, it's sped up, but in real life I went quite slowly, just using the tip to just make sure that it's only the tip, so it's a nice thin line that I'm getting from the Copic. I have thought about getting some of my Copics, like the O. The O was the one that I particularly thought that I might get the original in the O, because the originals, they don't actually have the brush tip. They had the bullet tip, and I think they had the broad tip, I think. So actually I've got one here, come to think of it. Hold the phone. I think I've got E55. Yep, there it is. So it's got the chisel tip and it's got a bullet point tip. And I was thinking the bullet tip might be really, really good. This is the die. It's really cool. And it has little fish and stars and shells. And I'm just trying to figure out where I need to go. So I've marked the outside of it. And you'll see I'll have to go back in. So we've got BV 29, 99, 97, 95 and 93 as our blues. So there's pretty good strong contrast, but we're going undersea, under the water. That would be better. Now I start off a really bit sort of wonky, little bit khaki-handed, shall we say. I don't know if that's a thing for American peeps, but a little bit khaki-handed, and I work from the lightest out to the darkest. And this is where some of this I'm going to cut out, but that's not till further around. And then I've sort of tweaked to the whole fact that I know where I've got to go, so I can just start out from the darkest and go down to my lightest. And it's going to look a little bit ugly town, but once it's all blended in, it looks really, really cool. So now we're going to work backwards again, and hopefully you can't hear my kids. Isolation, people. But we're going to work through this, and then we're going to go around the rest of the card. And you can see that I don't need the whole image. And I do come back with the bubbles a little bit later on and cover those up. So now we're going to work from the darkest in, down to the lightest sort of thing. And in small areas, I haven't really fussed around too much. We've just gone a darkest, or we've just gone the lightest, and not worried about it too much at all. So we've placed, she's going to be on the bottom of the sea. So we've placed our sort of horizon line, if you can say that, under the sea. The surface, not the surface, the ocean floor. Let's just go with that. And you can see I've just cut it. And you can see that I've got up the top, I'm going to have areas where I need to go back in and do more. So this is going to be our sand, 57, E55 and E31. And these are going to be our little stippling. So 13, 29 and 0. And at one point I actually pick up the wrong colour. Now I had issues with my E33. It was drying at this point. So I actually stopped the camera and refilled it. And then used it and it was all great. I took the lid off just in case I had any issues with it bleeding and being over full, which apparently I didn't, because I put it down and came back to it and I'm like, looks like it's dry. This is not moving. So I don't know whether it's coming to it. The marker itself is coming to its end of its life and I need to get a new one. I had that with C1, I think it was, and I bought a sketch because every time I went to my C1, the lids were on properly, but they just weren't working. They just weren't working. So now I've got the right color now, I think. I think this was where I sort of went, no, it's on the front panel. See, it looks like it's drying. So I did stop it again and put a bit more in, which should have been way too much. So we're going to do some stippling. So we're going to start out with just, again, the very tip of the marker. And because it's a brush tip, it's so flexible. This is where I thought a original might be really come in handy with these sort of things, because sometimes I do this with the stippling with the dots everywhere. So we're just adding in, working with the darkest color, the E29, and the darkest area, and then bringing it out more. So we start with a concentrated area in the darker, and as it comes away, or comes towards us, shall we say, it gets a little bit more sparser. There's a little bit more gap, a little bit less. But underneath her, it's going to be closer in together. And the same thing is going to happen with the E13. And I will put some of those over the darker colour as well, in between the dark colour, just to help blend them in. And then I went back through with the E31 just over the top of the lot. And it doesn't, you can still see all, it's not blending, it's blending it into a point, but it's not over blending. So I've just noticed a couple of spots, you know how. So there you go. And you can still see, I've missed some dots. I've missed some rocks down the bottom, but that doesn't matter. So how pretty is this die? It's really, really cool. So we figured out where we want it, and I'll just trim off what I don't need. And you don't need to fuss too much with adding the extra spots for the bubbles, because you're going to see these tiny spots, and I'm actually going to put some glossy accents in these holes. So we're going to start to colour, which I've never done. We've got this rock. I want to keep this rock. I kept all the other bits and pieces just in case, but I've kept this rock. Now we're going to start to colour. So the greens are still going to be the same. It's going to be the same greens that we're involved in with the her belly, her tummy, her body. Let's go with that, body. And it's all going to be the same. And I'm going to put a little bit down at the bottom of it, just to hopefully blend it in a little bit and around the edges, so they're going off to the side. You know how like we do if we cut out an image? And I'm trying to figure out what this thing is. So we're just going to colour it like it's a piece of seaweedy type of thing, and we're going to call it good. So we got a couple of things that still, I'm not going to worry about the matte. So I've got this matte, which in theory is actually, I got it at Officeworks. It's actually a like under the desk. No, it wasn't. It was IKEA, I think. Under the desk, that goes like you have your chair on it, sort of thing, but it's super small. So it's not any chair that I live with. But anyway, so I've put that on my desk. So I'm not really worried about the markers hitting the desk, because I can just clean that off with an alcohol wipe. So we're just working through all these bits and pieces. And we're just going with the flow. There's nothing special about this. We're just using the same colours that we have the whole time. So we have that continuation. I've tried to leave all the bubbles out because some of them are connected to the seaweed. How cool is that looking? It's already so cool. I was so happy with how this thing turned out. And we're just mapping in our seafloor again, just so I can figure out where to go. So around this starfish, he's going to be buried. So he's going to be a little bit jagged edge. He's not going to be a straight edge. But this is where I'm colouring in the wrong colour. And I'm like, what's going on? This is odd. So we're going to get the right colour. And we're just going to go over the top of it. It's not going to cause a great big a deal. And they'll blend in together, and it will be awesome. So I'm grounding some of my rocks as well, and it's only a little bit. It's not much to it at all, but it just gives it an extra little bit of detail. I don't know what I was pointing to there. And see, I've still got my rock. I thought I lost it at one point. So putting a little bit more of ground in, and we're doing a little bit of stippling. Just so it looks like sand. It's got that texture in it, and it blends into the rest of it, the rest of the girl. It's a bit hard to see at the moment, but it comes up really, really cool. And it really doesn't take that long, even though I'm doing a fair bit. But you've got to go in with a very gentle hand. And this is sped up to be about 3 times. And I've also had people talking to me, and kids, and probably discussing all sorts of things while I was doing this. So the same sort of thing, we're now coming in with our O. That will take away some of that colour, so to speak, and pushes it into the background, into the back of the card. That looks really, really cool. And I realised I needed a couple of cover up some more rocks. And even though I haven't coloured those rocks because they're holes, and there's still my rock up the top, it doesn't matter. Now I'm going to colour these bubbles. At the moment it's going to be, I think it was in B95, sorry. But later on I'll come back through and I'll darken those up. And we're just figuring out what colours I needed. So these are the 2 that we're going to use. And we're going to use the chisel end. Although I start with the brush tip, I sort of go, what on earth are you doing? And it's really great to add a lot of colour in really, really quickly. You just have to be careful around the images. So you got some little fish there, and we've still got some starfish to colour in. So I'm going to, the magic of YouTube, we're going to change very shortly, and I think I'll get around to the other corner and then I cut it all off. Because there's nothing big on this. It's literally just throwing colour down, blending it in a little bit, and that's it. So done. So the starfish and the fish are going to be the same colours. So the O2, and actually I do add in the YR04. I do add that in as well. Because then the starfish and little fish, they have this connection to the seahorse. The seahorse and the little starfish that's in her hair. So it's got little cut lines for the little fins. So we're using some of that to figure out where to put some colours, but when I'm not fussing too much. They're fish, they're tiny fish, they're not even big. So it's no big deal. So this panel is going to be mounted up on some foam, and I'm going to save you having to watch me fight with the phone tape so I can cut it up. And this is where I've changed, and I've gone into the B97, I think it was. I've got all the colours written down, but see, that's better. Add a bit more down the bottom. So voila, done. So I'm going to take off half of this so I can press down on the bottom half of it, or the top half I should say, and apply the bottom half and then turn it over and we'll take the rest of it off. And then I can make sure the seaweed down the bottom is not going up over her face. And it doesn't matter, I can cut those other bits off. But at least this way I can position her exactly right. Now I've coloured this over a few weeks, so my clothes have changed, thank goodness, and my nails have changed, so that's why. I did it quite a while ago. I actually did some of the image for the Kathy Rakusen 30-day colouring challenge ages ago. So we're going to glue it all down, and then I'm going to go in with the glossy accent, and we're going to put a little bit of stickles on her as well. And then she's done. So the glossy accents, oh, now we're going to do the stickles first. Nope, tricked you. So the glossy accents is going to be in the holes for the bubbles, because I thought that will provide it with just some cool little texture, and on the bubbles that are actually on that top layer. And it turned out really good, even though there, it's just something, a little bit of interest in the whole thing, and a couple of drops of glossy accent here and there, because she is supposed to be underwater. So the stickles we're going to put on her tail and her body and a little bit in her hair, and that is it. So I do hope you enjoyed that. I do hope you're still awake, and you can find all the details down below in my link to my blog, and hopefully like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you. Take care. Bye.